Hi, and welcome to another episode of Joy Recovery Radio. Glad that you joined us today. This particular episode, we decided to entitle something that was shocking and attention-getting, but we're not exaggerating when we refer to the damage and the insidious nature of this particular form of abuse. And when this is found in your relationship, the data suggests that it does incredible damage to the coupleship, and it can be hard to heal from this. It becomes a systemic way of relating to one another that is learned behavior, and it's so toxic to the intimacy in the coupleship, yet very few people talk about it. It's often unconscious, we're often unaware of it, and it's often socially accepted. We see it modeled in other relationships. We probably experienced it growing up in significant others and our caretakers. And so we're calling this the silent relationship killer that you've got to avoid at all cost. And what we're talking about is invalidation in particular. So let me begin with a basic definition of what do we mean when we say invalidation. What we're talking about is to reject, to ignore, to mock, to judge, or to diminish or devalue someone's emotions, someone's perception, someone's reality, someone's experience. It is an attempt to control how someone feels, or how intensely they feel it, or how long they feel it. So let me begin with some of the research that we find in the literature today when we study invalidation and the damage that it's done. And what we're going to talk about is really two lenses, a look back and a look at the present. So a look back would be during your formative years, especially age 6 to 16, but even outside of that parameter. When you felt invalidated during those formative years, it really made an impression on your psyche. And there's some correlations between growing up in an environment of invalidation and certain behaviors and risk factors. That's one lens we want to take in this episode, is looking back for both the men and the women, the betrayed and the betrayer, looking back at your experiences of invalidation growing up. But we also want to look at current state and how is invalidation showing up in your coupleship, in the way that you relate to each other. First, let's take a look back and let's look at the literature. One of the things that we find is one of the main reasons that an adult today may suffer from unmet emotional needs is due to constant invalidation during their childhood. We're not talking about episodic invalidation or acute invalidation that would happen just periodically, sporadically, here and there. We're talking about a form of trauma that is complex PTSD, or complex shaping of a person's psyche, where there is an environment, there is a pattern, there is consistently invalidation of the child and what they're feeling, or how they're expressing it, or how intensely they're expressing it, or how long it lasts. In fact, we have found a very strong link, or what I would call a risk factor, between emotional invalidation during childhood and addictive behaviors later in life. So we know about other risk factors that could lead to someone having compulsive sexual behavior, such as early exposure to pornography, sexual abuse of some kind, other trauma wounds during childhood. But what is not talked about too often is that invalidation definitely is a risk factor. Emotional invalidation during childhood becomes a risk factor for not only suppressing the emotions, but escaping the emotions that have been deemed invalid by their environment, by significant others in our life. Our emotions and our experience and our feelings have been invalidated by our environment. We don't know how to process that. We don't know how to handle our emotions. We suppress, we escape, we medicate through some kind of addictive behavior. There's also a correlation in the literature between girls in particular that felt emotionally invalidated and had that invalidation trauma in their childhood are more likely to either cut themselves and have that behavior, or develop an eating disorder. And then a very interesting finding coming out of the University of Washington shows that when it comes to bipolar personality disorder, and I know some of our listeners have been diagnosed with that, or your therapist may think that you show signs of that, what they're finding in the literature coming out of the University of Washington is that bipolar personality disorder is actually a result of two things that a child experiences. Number one, that child is what's called, quote, emotionally vulnerable or emotionally sensitive, combined with an invalidating environment around them. So one thing is internal, the other thing is external. When those things are combined, you're more likely to have bipolar personality disorder. Let's define those two conditions. The first one, internal. A child who is considered to be emotionally sensitive or emotionally vulnerable in the terms of behavior science, what they mean by that is that child's autonomic nervous system reacts excessively to what's considered to be low levels of stress. So they have a sensitive nervous system that is more responsive to what would be considered low levels of stress. And it takes that child longer than normal to return to baseline even after the stress is removed. And so that is an emotionally vulnerable child. Their nervous system is slightly more sensitive than the typical person. You combine that internal state with an external state of what's called an invalidating environment. That simply means that the personal experiences and the emotional responses of the child are disqualified by a significant other. They're invalidated. And so the child can't accurately label what they're feeling. Neither is the child helped in any way to cope with their feelings. So as a result, the child either inhibits and suppresses and constricts their emotions so that they will be accepted by their significant other. Or the other end of the spectrum would be this. The child now shows even more extreme displays of emotions. It's a desperate attempt to get attention and to be acknowledged that I am struggling here. I love this quote from Dr. R.D. Laing when it comes to invalidation. Quote, when we invalidate people or deny their perceptions or personal experiences, we make emotional invalids of them. A person can be made to feel crazy when they are actually perfectly mentally healthy. So what Dr. Laing is saying, and this is a sobering thought, that when we invalidate people, we make emotional invalids of them. Invalidation creates invalids when it comes to our emotions. So let's talk a little bit more about the damage. What exactly is done when we feel invalidated? You know, when we look at trauma, it's often viewed through the lens of some really horrific, single, significant event, one that has potential to cause incredible damage to your well-being. But what often gets missed is the many little traumas, lower T trauma, that through repetition and through consistency in our environment, they chip away at the core of who we are. These little cracks that create self-doubt, negative self-perceptions, or false beliefs about the person that we truly are. We begin to feel that our entire being has been invalidated. So there's a particular kind of trauma called traumatic invalidation. It's trauma through being invalidated. And it occurs when an individual's environment is repeatedly or intensely communicates to that individual that their experiences, their characteristics, their emotional reactions are unreasonable or they're unacceptable. And this is especially harmful if it comes from our primary caregiver, our primary attachment, someone who is close to you, either in childhood or now in adulthood. The Gottmans call invalidation a form of relational trauma. They have found that it harms the brain and the nervous system, that invalidation goes beyond just feeling rejected by implying that our perception or our feelings are not approved of, but that we are fundamentally flawed, we are abnormal, or we are crazy, that something is wrong with our mental health, that there's not just something wrong with our perception or our emotions, but there's something wrong with us for thinking this way or feeling this way. And as you can imagine, this is incredibly damaging. When we are invalidated for our perception or our emotions, our experience, our reality, we are being rejected at the deepest level possible. We are being attacked at the very core and center of who we are, because our perception and our emotions are the innermost expression of our very identity. So hear me when I say invalidation is one of the most damaging, lethal forms of emotional and psychological abuse that we can engage in. And when we take a lens at the past in our formative years, 6 to 16 years old, how were you invalidated? What did that do to you? What kind of damage do you still carry as a result of that? What scripts and self-talk and false beliefs have you subscribed to as a result of that invalidation? And are you now perpetuating that way of relating now in your primary relationship? When you tell a person that they should not feel a certain way, it's like telling water that it should not be wet, or grass that it should not be green, or rocks that they should not be hard. Everyone's feelings are real. They're real to them. And they have a right to feel them, whether we like those emotions, whether we agree with those emotions. You're not just rejecting their feelings. You're rejecting their reality. You're rejecting their identity. You're rejecting their personhood. Now the question comes up, is this not a form of gaslighting? Yes and no, in a way. There is a distinction and a difference. Invalidation, it can be intentional, stemming from a person's lack of understanding or their own emotional discomfort. But gaslighting is almost always deliberate. It's strategic. It's intentional. It's used as a tool to control someone else. It is an abusive relationship. When we invalidate someone, we often think that we're helping. And there may not be any intent to cause harm. But we are perpetuating a way that we learned of relating to other people. When we don't agree with their emotions, we feel like their emotions are exaggerated, that they're unwarranted, that these are not justified, that you shouldn't be feeling this way, you shouldn't be thinking this way, you shouldn't be responding this way. So here's what we're describing as the process of invalidation, that it is a cycle. It's a cycle that if it's in your life today, you need to become more aware of it and you need to stop it. The cycle is this. We were invalidated. Many of us men grew up in an environment where we were invalidated. We did not know what to do with our emotions as a result. And it became a major risk factor that did not cause our addictive behavior, but it was a major contributor to our addictive behavior. And then when we enter into a relationship, we gaslight our partners before discovery to make sure they don't find out about this behavior. And then after discovery, there may still be gaslighting going on, but often there is invalidation going on, where we consciously or oftentimes unconsciously invalidate our partners because we think that they're overreacting to the pain that we've caused. Or we think they're holding on to the pain too long and they should be over it by now. What we end up doing, often unconsciously, is repeating the same invalidation that we experienced in our childhood. We received it and now we're transferring it. We invalidate others because we were invalidated growing up. It became a habit. It became a system. It became a way of relating. And now we are continuing that cycle in our primary relationship. So anytime I find a man in recovery who is practicing invalidating their partner, I often ask them, who invalidated you growing up? Who was mean to you? And what I mean by the word mean or the word meanness, it comes from a word that originally means, quote, small or inferior, low or diminished. We are, quote, mean to others when we feel small, inferior, low, or diminished. And now we want to bring that other person to our level. Invalidation is a learned form of meanness. We feel low, diminished, and we want to bring others to our level. Invalidation is a mechanism. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of relating that gets perpetuated until you as an individual or collectively as a couple choose to stop it because now you're aware of it. My hope with this content today is that it raises your consciousness about this form of abuse. When I ask the question of the men that I work with, who invalidated you? It's not because I'm trying to blame the parents or some kind of authority in their life, because blame doesn't heal anyone. In fact, blame just deepens the shame and it perpetuates the trauma. The purpose of that question is to illuminate. When we become aware, not for the purpose of blame, but for the purpose of introspection and turning inwards, when we become aware of the invalidation, that it was done to us and now we're doing it to others, now we can start the process of repairing with others what was happening to us and what we're doing to others, and that repair can begin in our heart. What eventually happens when you feel invalidated growing up and you don't know how to process or deal with your emotions, you begin to invalidate yourself. You begin to dismiss your own emotional experiences. You begin to invalidate or criticize your own emotional experiences. It's a pattern of belittling your own feelings, viewing emotional sensitivity or emotional reactions as a form of weakness, especially as men, and believing that we should be able to control our own emotional behaviors. And so we begin to invalidate not only the emotional experiences of others, we begin to invalidate our own emotional experiences.
Hey, we wanted to let you know about our latest upcoming webinar on April 19th. We will be taking a deep dive into what Bill W. from AA called the final frontier of recovery, and that is emotional sobriety. Are you in recovery and ready to move beyond Stage 1 recovery, sexual sobriety, and embrace Stage 2 recovery, emotional sobriety well-being? Then this webinar is for you. Are you a betrayed partner who wants to develop emotional resilience and regulation in the midst of your grieving and trauma? Then this webinar is for you. We have a few spots open at the time of this recording, so go to joy-recovery.com and click on webinars to secure your reservation today.
Now, what I want to look at is there are 8 different forms of invalidation that we find in the literature. Many of these are so unconscious and insidious that we don't even know what's happening. We don't know that we're doing it. And often when we're on the receiving end of invalidation, we can't quite pinpoint why I'm feeling so rejected right now, or judged right now, or just hurt right now. We don't even realize that we're being invalidated. Some of these forms of invalidation deal with words. Some of these forms of invalidation is more about behavior and what we do. And so as we look at these 8 forms of invalidation, I want you to use the 2 lenses. Look at your childhood and see how were you invalidated then? And now look at your coupleship. How are you invalidating your partner now? Or how are you being invalidated by your partner now? In light of this rubric, in light of these 8 forms of invalidation. The first one is known as emotional neglect. This is simply when you're not receiving the love or the care that you need in the middle of your suffering. Your significant other seems to be indifferent to your pain. Each of these forms of invalidation have a core wounding message that we begin to believe and internalize. And the core message that wounds us from emotional neglect, this first type, is the feeling that I am unlovable. I am unlovable. So what does emotional neglect look like? Well, this is when we begin to minimize your feelings. We say things like, you've got to be kidding. You can't be serious. It can't be that bad. Oh, you're just being difficult. You're being dramatic. You're just in a bad mood. You're just tired. This is nothing to get upset over, and your feelings are being minimized. Or another form of emotional neglect is philosophizing or using cliches like, well, that's life. Or to keep this show PG, I'll say, crap happens. That's life. We just need to deal with it. Cliches like, well, time heals all wounds and every cloud has a silver lining and life is full of both pain and pleasure. In time, this will make sense. In time, you will understand. You're just going through a phase. There's a reason for everything. Or even using scripture out of line in an abusive way and saying things like, well, God works in mysterious ways, or God causes all things to work together for good. All of these are forms of emotional invalidation. The second form is ignoring. This is more behavioral rather than words. This is when you stonewall your partner. You avoid your partner. You refuse to give them any attention. You are treating them like they are not important to you. And the core wounding message from ignoring the second type of invalidation is that I don't matter. The third form of invalidation is called controlling. This is where we tell others what to feel or what to think or what to do. The core wounding message behind this form of invalidation is I am incompetent. So this takes on a few different ways that we see this. First, ordering you to feel different. So we tell you should smile, be happy, cheer up, lighten up, get over it, grow up, get a life. Don't cry. Don't get angry. Deal with it. Give it a rest already. Forget about it. Stop complaining. Stop being a martyr. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Don't take it personally. Why do you have to take everything personally? All of these are forms of control. We're ordering the person what they should be feeling or that they need to feel different. We even control people by ordering them to look different. Don't look so sad. Don't look so smug. Don't look so down. Don't look so serious. Don't look so proud of yourself. Don't look so pleased with yourself. Another way of controlling is we tell people how they should feel or how they should act. You should be excited. You should be thrilled. You should feel guilty right now. You should be thankful. You should be happy. You should be glad. You should just drop it. You shouldn't worry so much. You shouldn't let it bother you. You should just forget about it. You should feel ashamed of yourself. You shouldn't wear your heart on your sleeve like this. You shouldn't say that about that person. All of these are the third type of invalidation. They're forms of control. Being told what to feel, what to think, what to do. Number 4, the fourth type of invalidation is blaming. This is when you're being told that you're the problem, that you're causing problems or stress for others, that you're to blame. And the core wounding message behind this is, I am a problem. One of the ways that this is done is we try to shame you while we invalidate you with saying things like, well, at least I, and then blank, or you're making everyone else miserable. You're ruining this event for everyone. My sponsor says that you're crazy and you need help. Don't you ever think about anyone but yourself? What about my feelings? You're impossible to talk to. I can't say anything to you. This is really getting old, or this is pathetic, or I am sick of listening to this. I am done with this topic. All of these are forms of blaming. You're the problem for what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, and what you're doing. You're causing problems for me. That's invalidating. A fifth form of invalidation is unequal treatment. And this is simply being treated as if you are less than, or you are different, or especially that you are defective. So the core wounding message behind this fifth type of invalidation is, I am inferior. One way that this is expressed is, we try to isolate you. You're the only one that feels that way. It doesn't bother anyone else. Why is it bothering you? None of my brothers in recovery have partners that are reacting like you are. It's unequal treatment. It's being treated as if you are different, less than, or defective. The sixth expression of invalidation is excluding. And we can feel this in our adulthood, but we especially felt this in our childhood. And this is when you are being left out or you are being rejected in some way. The core wounding, invalidating message behind this is, I don't belong. I don't fit in. The seventh form of invalidation is probably one of the most common and most destructive, and that is criticizing. You're being told that what you feel is wrong, what you think is wrong, what you value is wrong, your reality is wrong, what you do is wrong. The core wounding, invalidating message behind this is, I am bad. So this is when we say things like, you shouldn't feel that way. You're being too sensitive. You're being dramatic. Or sometimes we use logic and rationality to address their emotions by saying things like, you are being completely irrational right now. There is no valid reason to feel this way. Let's look at the facts of the situation. There is no reason to get upset. It doesn't make any sense that you feel this way. Let's stick to the facts. Or, quote, if you really think about it, blank. We also use labels to invalidate people, to criticize people in this particular category. We'll call someone a drama queen, or a crybaby, or a whiner, or a worrywart, or a negative Nancy, or a pity party, or they're wallowing. And so we'll use put downs and labels to criticize someone's emotions or someone's reality. Sometimes in a very mean-spirited way, we'll use sarcasm or mocking as a way of criticizing. Things like, oh, you poor thing, did you get your little feelings hurt? What did you think? That the world was created to revolve around you and serve you? What happened to you today? Did you get out of the wrong side of the bed? What's wrong with you? So that's mocking and criticizing and sarcasm. Sometimes the way of criticizing is we just deny their perception. We'll say things like, no, you got it all wrong. Or even more hurtful, this is ridiculous. This is nonsense. You are totally absurd. Or a passive aggressive way. I was only kidding. I didn't really mean it. That's not the way things are. It's not going to happen. Another way that we criticize and invalidate is by comparing pain. And I've seen this a lot, especially in recovery. My childhood trauma was much more severe than yours. My childhood was harder than your childhood. You should be grateful. Others have it much worse than you did. And we invalidate by comparing pain and comparing trauma. Sometimes we criticize or invalidate others by defending someone else that they're upset with. Perhaps our partner is angry or frustrated with their boss, and we don't even know their boss, but we defend their boss and we think we're helping. We may say things like, well, maybe they were just having a bad day. I'm sure they didn't mean it that way. You just took it wrong. I'm sure that they mean well. The impact of that is you're defending a stranger and you're invalidating the emotions and the experience and the perception of your own partner. Another way that we criticize and invalidate is by negating or by denial. We'll say things like, now you know that isn't true. Or you don't really mean that. You're just in a bad mood, or you're just cranky, or you're just sleepy. And another form of criticizing is trying to control how long you feel something, or judging you for how long you feel something. We'll say things like, are you still upset about that? That happened a long time ago. I thought you were over that. We've already discussed this. You should be over this by now. And then there's just some miscellaneous ways that we invalidate in our relationships that don't necessarily fall into one of these categories, but it's still a very common way of invalidating. So I'm going to call it category 8, just junk drawer miscellaneous ways that we invalidate. One of them would be we're trying to calm someone down. So let's say someone is worried about something. And so we think we're helpful. So we'll say something like, oh, don't worry. You don't need to worry about that. The impact of that normally is it actually causes the person to worry even more. You've actually made it worse. Because not only are they worried about the original stressor in their life, but now they can tell you don't take them seriously and that you're not going to do anything to prevent whatever they're worried about because you don't think it's legitimate. So now they're even more worried and you thought you were being helpful. Another way that we do this, and this is so incredibly subtle, it's common in our culture to say things like, well, duh, and your point is, so, and all of these are ways of invalidating the point that the person was trying to make in the first place. Sometimes we invalidate by just giving advice and the person never asked for advice. They just wanted to be heard, seen, validated. But we go into fix-it mode and we don't even validate their reality or their emotions. And then finally, even when you're happy, sometimes unhappy people will invalidate you, trying to bring you down to their level of misery by saying diminishing things. What are you so happy about? That's it? You're happy over that? That's all it took to get you excited? So as you can see from these 8 categories of invalidation, when your awareness rises, you're going to begin to notice these comments every single day in every relationship, both personal life and professional life. But when you put these invalidating comments and moments together, they take a toll on us. They take a toll on our partner. We begin to wonder, is something wrong with me for feeling the way that I feel? When there is enough consistent invalidation, you can figuratively or literally drive another person crazy. Invalidation is a serious violation of someone's true self. And when we repeatedly invalidate, it might be one of the worst abuses one person can commit against another person. You didn't lift a finger. You didn't even raise your voice. It's not illegal. It's not considered immoral in our culture. It's not even widely recognized as a problem in relationships. But this can absolutely destroy your intimate relationships. So, what should you do if you are being invalidated? And what should you not do if your partner is invalidating you? It is a legitimate form of a psychological attack, a form of emotional abuse. And your survival instinct will kick in. And you will either withdraw or you will counterattack, flight or fight. However, if you do this repeatedly, if you repeatedly withdraw and avoid, this tends to decrease your self-confidence, and it leads to a sense of learned helplessness, powerlessness, hopelessness, shame, and depression. So that is not the proper repeated response. Nor is it helpful to go on the counterattack and to fight. This often escalates the conflict, and it can lead to resentment and seeing your partner as the enemy. One sign of high emotional intelligence is the absence of both of these defensive survival instincts. A healthier response, one that is assertive without being aggressive, is to simply express very clearly, concisely to your partner, I feel invalidated by what you just said. Or I feel mocked. I feel devalued. I feel judged. You may go on to say, I understand that you might not agree with my feelings, but they are real to me, and it's important to me that you acknowledge that. Now, when you are assertive and you bring it to the awareness of your partner that I feel invalidated right now. These are my emotions. They're real to me, and it's important to me that you acknowledge them. How your partner responds in that moment will indicate one of 4 things. Number 1, you will know how much or how little they respect you by how they reply to your assertiveness. Number 2, you will know how much or how little they care about you and your feelings in particular. Number 3, you will get a glimpse into how insecure or how defensive they are. And number 4, you will see how much they are trying to control you or to change you. Any of these 4 reactions is helpful for you to make your decisions as to what is in your best interest in this relationship. A person that has a well-developed, healthy set of emotional skills with empathy, with a healthy self-identity, and they've dealt with their shame, this kind of well-developed, high EQ person will hardly ever invalidate another person's feelings, especially not the feelings of someone that you love and you care about. 2 more things as we close up this episode. First, Matthew Fraze has what he calls the invalidation triple threat. He found that men are the primary perpetrators of the triple threat, and the triple threat is likely to lead to the end of the relationship. Here's the triple threat. The first step is this. You deny your partner's feelings or their thoughts as valid, so you invalidate them. Number 2, you dismiss them as overreactive. And number 3, you defend or justify your own actions that caused the hurt in the first place. The reason this is so damaging, insidious, and a silent relationship killer, this triple threat, is because not only does it dismiss her feelings, but it now sets the stage for you to behave the same way in the future with no change. And you will perpetuate not only the offending behavior, but the cycle of invalidation of her response. So let me give you what I call the 4 A's of stopping invalidation. 4 steps, all beginning with the letter A. We've got to stop the damage that we're doing to our partners. We may have learned this from our childhood, and it's carried on to our primary attachment now, but we need to become aware of it, and we need to stop it. We can stop it with these 4 steps. The first A is this: active listening. What this means is we pay close attention to our partner when they communicate. We show engagement by summarizing or paraphrasing what they said to us, and we quit formulating our response in our head while they're talking, because that's not active listening. We listen and we learn from the one that we have wounded. And at the same time that we show engagement with the wounded person, we also are connecting with the wounds that are in ourself. And we're recognizing the ways that we were invalidated in the past and how we're now transferring that invalidation to others. So step one, active listening. Step two, acknowledge emotions. Recognize your partner's emotions, label them, validate them without dismissing them. And understand, validation does not require agreement. You do not have to agree with the rationality of her emotions or her way of thinking, her reality or her thoughts, but you want to acknowledge it as legitimate, that this is their emotions and this is their experience. The third A, assume responsibility. When you realize that your actions have hurt your partner, it's absolutely crucial for you to acknowledge this. You don't make any excuses. You don't defend yourself in any way. You don't justify. You don't minimize what you've done. It does not matter if the offense was intentional or not. The impact is what matters, and that's what you own. You have hurt them. You acknowledge that. You own that. And fourth, you make amends. Amends means to take action to right the wrong. Amends is not a one-time gesture. I know men in recovery that will make an amends and then continue the abuse or the offensive behavior over and over and over again. If you made a proper, true, legitimate amends, you don't repeat the behavior. When you're repeating the behavior, you have not done a true amends process. A true amends process is a continuous effort to avoid causing any more harm while embracing actions that repair your partner and heal your partner. A living amends means that at every opportunity, I continue to serve my partner. I continue to invest in my partner. I continue to honor my partner. I continue to put her needs first. I continue to learn from her experience, reality, and woundedness. I continue to respect her, and I continue to fight for her safety and fight for her healing. That's a proper amends. In summary, I want to issue a challenge to the men in particular who are listening. Two things. Number one, stop the harm. Number two, start the healing. Stop the harm. Do not deny your partner's emotions and perceptions anymore. Do not argue with her experience. Do not dismiss her. Do not judge her. Do not reject her. Do not try to control her reality, her thoughts, her actions, her emotions, her perception. Stop the harm. Start the healing. Now, this might be the most critical point of this entire episode. According to the Gottmans and their research, it takes 20 experiences of feeling validated by your partner to heal the limbic system from one episode of invalidation. Do you get that ratio? It takes 20 what behavior science would call corrective experiences of validation to undo the damage of one episode of invalidation. 20 to 1. Now, if you take an inventory of all the times over the years that you have invalidated your partner, what you're looking at is an emotional debt, a relational debt of possibly thousands of validations to help them heal from the abuse of invalidation. But because of our neuroplasticity of our brains, the good news is this: when we practice validation as a new way of living and a new way of relating, every day validating our partners, we can create incredible healing. We can create lasting change in our partner and in our coupleship. And that's my challenge to you. Thanks for joining us for this episode, and we'll see you next time.